one of the most, if not the most sophisticated social contract in the world is the Constitution for the United States of America, which includes the Second Amendment, which is an extension of the Declaration of Independence, which declared that it is our God-given right to defend ourselves. It isn't just our instinct. Everybody has the instinct. That's what God gave. God gave us the instinct to defend ourselves. Those three Americans, ages 22 and 23, who attacked a man with an assault rifle and took him down before he could get the assault rifle working and use up his 9 clips of ammunition, about 250 to 300 rounds. They were acting on instinct. If you did watch the Megyn Kelly interview with them last night, it had nothing to do with our training, any training. We thought we were going to die, and we had at least a chance not to die if we go after him. So we went after him. And lo and behold, they were lucky. The first round in his chamber had a bad primer. The firing pin struck it, and it didn't go off. The firing pin struck it as Airman First Class, and I should know his name, and I forget names all the time, as the first, who knows it? Anyway, as the first American got to him, he shot at him, but the primer on the bullet didn't work, and it didn't go off, and he got to him, and the rest is history. But it was that natural, God-given instinct which we translated into a right to life, and then put it in the Constitution as the Second Amendment to the Constitution, because it's all the same thing. If you have a right to survive, if you have a right to exercise that instinct, you have a right to a weapon that makes it possible for you to exercise that instinct. And so our founders were wise enough to put that in the Constitution. Now, initially, it was put in there with the Revolutionary War just fresh in their mind. So they talked about the militia and how it was necessary in order to be able to form a militia, a well-organized militia. Then the right of the people to keep and bear arms could not be abridged, because the farmers and the preachers and even a few lawyers had picked up their hunting rifles, their muskets, and went and joined the Continental Army and defeated the British, using what amounted to exercising a Second Amendment right that at that time wasn't in the Constitution yet, but it seemed like a pretty damn good idea based on recent experience. So they did. Over time, the purpose of the Second Amendment has become, for some reason, confusing to a lot of people. They talk about hunting. Hunting has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. They talk about crime. Stopping crime really doesn't have anything to do with the Second Amendment, although practicing the Second Amendment, exercising your Second Amendment right, does put you in a position to stop crime from time to time, but that's not what the Second Amendment is all about. The Second Amendment is now, and always has been, about Homeland Security and guaranteeing that not only could we survive as an individual, that we could survive as a nation, so that we could form militias and survive as a nation, using the Second Amendment as the foundation for that militia. In the 20th century, we didn't need to use the Second Amendment at home, for the most part, to secure the homeland, because all of our wars were fought over there. World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Iraq War, all of our enemy stayed over there. We were allowed to fight them in somebody else's country. And then along came Al-Qaeda. And Al-Qaeda said, you know what, we don't like fighting their fighters. We're going to go around their fighters and we're going to hit the civilian population. They changed the rules of war. As I said, when weapons get that sophisticated, even though it sounds maddening that you've got rules of war, so you fight war in a sophisticated way, we don't line up anymore and just shoot at each other in big lines like the Redcoats and the Continental Army used to do, and the militia used to do. But there's still rules of war. And most countries generally sort of abide by those rules of war by fighting the fighters instead of the civilian population. But not terrorists, and not specifically not Islamic-inspired terrorists. They come after the civilians, wherever those civilians happen to be. 9/11 is just the greatest example of that. Now, in addition to Al-Qaeda, an outgrowth of Al-Qaeda is something called ISIS, the Islamic State, or ISIS, or ISIL. If you're in the Obama administration, you have to call it ISIL for some reason. And they're different than Al-Qaeda. See, Al-Qaeda was actually a fairly sophisticated organization when Osama bin Laden was running it. Now, whatever you think of the horror of 9/11, you have to admit it was a fairly sophisticated military operation. It took dedication on the parts of those guys that did it. It took discipline for them to do it. It took planning. It took execution. It took timing that was everything that a commander in the field wants from his troops. Osama bin Laden got from those guys who flew the airplanes into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon and tried to fly another one into either Congress or the White House, but was stopped by other brave Americans who figured out what they were doing and said, "Oh no, you don't, not this plane." That's what Americans do. That's what makes America. Now, I don't know how many other brave people there were on that French train going from Amsterdam to Paris, but I know the three who stopped him were Americans. And it has something to do. Amen. That's right. And it does have something to do with the Second Amendment. And the reason the Second Amendment is there, it has to do with the American dedication to living a life of courage against the enemy. It's reflected in the Declaration of Independence. It's reflected in the Constitution of the United States. It's reflected in a lot of our churches. It's reflected in you people right here in this parking lot. But that courage, unless you get really, really lucky, like those three brave Americans did on the train, doesn't do you a lot of good if the other guy's got an assault rifle and you've got your fists. The other guy's rifle has to not work. And thank God, and I do mean thank God, that rifle didn't work. Those men said on Megyn Kelly's program last night, it's wonderful that people think we're heroes, and it's overwhelming to us, the emotion that that brings to us that they've never had to deal with before. But he said, truth be known, we were just trying to survive. He said, if we'd been in a big, safe bubble, and that was happening outside us, and we left our safe bubble and went and saved them, then we'd be heroes. But we turned out to be heroes because we were practicing self-preservation. Self-preservation is God's gift to us. The Second Amendment to the Constitution is our founders' God-inspired gift to us. The equipment with which to practice the Second Amendment comes as the blessing of Colt and Winchester and Ruger and Glock and companies like that. It occurred to me after I put that second picture up, and by the way, the reason that I decided to go ahead and do this is because that with the first picture that I put up on Facebook with this t-shirt, most of the comments were to the effect, where can I get one of those? Well, the answer was you couldn't because that was the last one. But if people really wanted one, and I could produce a whole bunch of them and let you have them at cost, maybe that would get you out here so you'd listen to the story and we could make this story spread. So this is not a business. I'm not making any money off of these shirts and t-shirts. In addition to, I don't have this one and I'm not going to make that one again. In addition to the shirt that I'm wearing now in different colors, we have this t-shirt that has, much bigger, I call this the rally shirt, which is the one that I would be wearing today if I were not going into the restaurant after this probably. And I hope you will join me in there too for lunch. Um, this is the first one that I produced, and I decided I didn't like this as much, so I redesigned it after this, and I've got about 30 of these left over, which I'll let people have for just $10 if you want one of those. But that picture that I put up on Facebook and the next one with it got more likes. It got more likes and more comments and more shares than anything I put up there. And so there are people out there who actually want to talk about the Second Amendment and our Second Amendment obligation and how the Second Amendment fits into national security. Now, don't get me wrong. The role that I know we have is still not the main role in national security. It is still those bravest, youngest, strongest men and women that we send to god-awful countries around the world to protect us there. They are still and always will be our first line of defense, and thank God for them, that they're willing to do what they do. And our second line of defense is intelligence, and we weren't paying very much attention to that before 9/11, and we're now doing a much better job of that, but it isn't perfect. Our new FBI director, a guy by the name of James Comey, little guy, 6'8". If he were standing here, we'd be looking eye to eye if we were standing beside the truck. Has spoken to a lot of groups in the last 6 months, including Congress, including state attorneys general, and he tells them that, to use his words, to try to quote him precisely, he says, "We are watching various stages of radicalization in every state in America, in all 50 states. And then he added, and we will not stop them all." And they won't. They're doing a good job. They have stopped a lot, and they are doing a good job, and I hope we support them in the job that they're doing. But they can't stop them all. There is that third line of defense, and ladies and gentlemen, that's you and me. The people who have taken the trouble, gone through the training, spent the money, gone to the class, practiced, got your permit to carry a gun. Looks like this. My second confession is, until this happened, until those 5 brave Americans were killed on July 16th in Chattanooga, Tennessee, by an ISIS-inspired terrorist, I carried this with me all the time. But this was about all I carried with me all the time. I want you to imagine that I'm carrying this with me and nothing else when the stuff hits the fan, when the excrement hits the air circulation device. And bullets start flying everywhere, including toward me and the people around me who I love, including maybe even my great-granddaughter or one of my granddaughters. And if this is all I've got, what am I going to do with this? That last gesture is about all it's going to be good for, unless you're carrying what it allows you to carry legally, lawfully. Now, frankly, I don't like the fact that we have to go through all of that trouble to be able to exercise our Second Amendment right. I think the Constitution says shall not be abridged, not shall not be abridged, as long as you're willing to jump through a bunch of hoops. But it's still, what it does is it makes this population I'm talking about, 12.8 million Americans now, 1 out of 5 Americans has a concealed carry, or in Tennessee, a carry permit. That has increased triple. It has tripled just during, well, since 2007. It's tripled during the Obama administration. There are a lot of people that give Obama credit for that. Whether he deserved that or not, I won't make any political comments. But if we have 12.8 million people in that third line of defense who are actually carrying their guns, when this ISIS attack begins, wherever it was, again, the 3 guys on the train, they said, this is we're told about this all the time, that our commanders warn us about this, that be ready, always be situationally aware. Don't advertise yourselves as Americans, but always be aware. And he said, we are. He said, here we are. This is the first time in a long time I didn't have my gun, one of them said. One of the coincidences was, it was the first. He'd been in Afghanistan. He'd never actually faced the enemy in Afghanistan. He got close to a few bombs that had been lobbed in the direction of their post in Afghanistan, but he never actually had to exchange fire with an enemy in Afghanistan. So he's on a train with his two friends going from Amsterdam to Paris, and all of a sudden, there's the enemy with a gun. And for the first time, he doesn't have a gun. And he got really, really lucky, because the gun that the enemy had didn't work. And it's the only reason that instead of having 3 American heroes, it's the only reason we don't have about 200 dead passengers, because they got lucky. Americans have the courage. We do. They didn't know that they were going to be able to do that. They said, we hesitated for a second because we didn't really expect this to happen. Where'd the courage come from? It came from, they didn't have any choice. And that's what they told Megan last night. He said, the courage just came from the fact that this is the only way, we knew this was the only way that we were going to survive. We weren't thinking about the rest of the passengers. God's gift to them was God's gift to all of those passengers was they had the survival instinct, and they had the courage of Americans to put it to use. But I know each one of them would have preferred to do combat with that man with their own gun. I wish she would have asked him that specifically. One of these days somebody will, and I know what the answer will be. To those in the audience who are afraid of this, and there are some people, whether in this audience or not, there are people out there who are afraid of Uncle Ralph carrying his gun to a park with my children and grandchildren. They're afraid of Uncle Ralph carrying his gun into a restaurant or one of the honky-tonks in downtown Nashville. Uncle Ralph knows that if he's carrying his gun, he doesn't drink beer. That's the law, and we're a law-abiding American. The 12.8 million are the most law-abiding Americans in the country. New research just confirmed that. Research published in mid-July confirmed that the concealed carry permit holders commit crimes at a rate of 173 times less than the general population. 173 times less. Concealed carry permit holders commit crimes at a rate of 12 times less than law enforcement officers. Now, I'll give law enforcement officers a break. They deal with the worst people in our country on a regular basis, and if it gets to them every once in a while and they lose some of their stability, we understand that. But that doesn't change the fact that we're the safest people in the country. And frankly, we're even more safe when we're carrying our gun because we take that responsibility seriously. First time I ever saw a civilian carry a firearm was when my dad did it when I was 18 years old. He'd come back from World War II with a .303 rifle, with a .32 pistol, with a sword, and with a dagger, which I brought with me because I think it's pretty cool. This is one of the things my dad brought back. That's a pretty good weapon if you're up close. But you got to be up really close in order to use that. If we're going to protect the homeland, we have to carry our guns. And the people have to be comfortable with that. This is America. We don't want to be out scaring people while we're protecting them if possible. We are the most peaceful, peace-loving people in the world. And so what I would like to tell the folks who are afraid of us is just look at us. Look at our record. We're there to protect you. And the enemy is real. And the danger is real, and it's going to get even more real. It's going to get bigger. ISIS isn't going away anytime soon. ISIS so far is still getting bolder and bolder and bigger, and part of their recruiting, one of the presidential candidates, I think it was Jeb Bush, said in the debate that ISIS tweets out 100,000 recruiting messages a day to all parts of the world. And when somebody bites, when somebody like that person in Chattanooga, who should have been a very happy person, when they get him on the line, they then start using encrypted messages that the FBI can't unencrypt. They can't read it. And then they inspire him and they instruct him, and they've got somebody who will go out and try to shoot as many people as possible. Now, this guy should have been a very happy American. He's a naturalized citizen of the United States, Mr. Abdulaziz. A naturalized citizen of the United States. He lived in a medium to upper middle class neighborhood in the Chattanooga area. He had an engineering degree from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. He should have been a successful, happy person. But he wasn't. He was a loser who was looking for somebody else to blame, and ISIS got a hold of him and screwed with his mind and convinced him to go out and shoot a bunch of people. And there are a lot more losers out there that ISIS is going to get a hold of and turn into lone wolf terrorists. And this is the way most of them will work, because quite frankly, they aren't smart enough to pull off the kind of operation like Osama bin Laden's crew pulled off on 9/11. So they're going to shoot a lot of people. If they plant a bomb, there's not much our guns can do about that. But if they start shooting, and in every crowd of 100 people, there are 150 people here now, in a normal crowd, there would be, if everybody who has a carry permit is carrying, in a normal crowd this size, there would be 7 or 8 men and women who have a gun. And if one ISIS-inspired idiot terrorist starts shooting, I can guarantee you that he will die a lot faster than if we have to wait for the police to arrive. And he will kill a lot fewer people. That doesn't mean we can protect everybody. But we can protect a lot of people, and I would sure as hell rather he die within seconds than within a few minutes after the police arrived and he's already killed dozens of people. And he will. You have my word on that. If you carry that American courage, and you carry that license to carry, and you carry that gun that your license to carry gives you the legal right to carry, and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you too will be an American hero unless he shoots you first. And then somebody else in your crowd will be that American hero. And I'm not looking to be a hero. There are a lot of things we're not. This tour, Second Amendment, is Homeland Security tour. A lot of things we're not. We're not a business. We're not vigilantes. We're not looking for trouble. We just know trouble is there and it might crop up around us. We are definitely not looking for trouble. We're not telling ISIS, come and get us. Hell no, don't come and get us. We're not trying to replace the police. We're not trying to replace the military. We're trying to complement them. We are, whether we like it or not, because that's just the nature of this enemy, we are that third line of defense. We have a right, and now we have a duty to be that third line of defense. God has given you the right. Our founders have put it in our Constitution. Our enemies have called us out. Brave Americans exercising their Second Amendment right will keep us as safe as America can be. Thank you for being here. Thank you for, I'll bet you in this crowd there's more than 7 or 8 guns, by the way. And I hope nobody feels the least bit nervous, because you're in probably the safest place in the world. Thank you again very much. Does anybody have a question they'd like to ask? All right, I have set up made these shirts available. They're t-shirts.
No, please do.
The thing that kept me from finishing it was I just couldn't think of anything to. I wrote a first verse, and that was it. And I was in New York City 2 months ago, and I was in the World Trade Center, the new one, and I looked down and I saw the 2 big holes in the ground, and it just hit me again. And the colossal effect that day had on me and so many, all of us. Unfortunately, not enough people, though, in this nation. And as I started to think about how I'm still mad about what happened, then I look around the world, and it's almost as if nobody expects that to happen again, except a minority of people that see things for what they are. And I see evil growing, and it really bothered me. And I prayed Monday night that the Lord would just, if He wants this song out, if He wants this song written, that He would do it for me, because I don't know how to write exactly what I'm feeling, because there's so many great 9/11 songs out there. But, I thought, I can hold it right for that now.
Okay.
I thought, Alan Jackson's song was amazing. It moved me greatly, but that was for 2001. And, Daryl Worley's song was incredible. Still love that song, but that was really for 2004. And I don't know how anybody feels about it now, but I just decided to write how I feel about it in 2015. So Thursday night is literally when we got it finished. We recorded it Wednesday. We were at band rehearsal, and I was like, hey guys, we're all here. Why don't we record this? They were like, are you crazy? 9/11's in 2 days. I said, I know. Yeah, I am kind of crazy. And I have, it has like 15 more steps after you record it of mixing and mastering and all this stuff you got to do. And then I was on my way with one CD to this CD presser, a guy that prints CDs, and he was just going to print 100 for me for the show tonight that we have. I was on my way when I was listening to Ralph yesterday morning, and I had no idea he was going to play it. I didn't even know if he was going to hear it. But all of a sudden, he starts talking about it and starts playing it, and I'm like, oh crap. I'm not ready for that. So I got 100, but that's what the guy had time to make for me yesterday. But anyway, it just has been really such a blessing that you were willing to do that, and I did not expect that at all. I had no expectations that he'd even hear it. So I'm very, very humbled, and I don't want to take much more time, so I just want to thank you. And because I don't hardly even know the song, I just wrote it. I have it there. I just ran across a picture, and it stopped me in my tracks. A frozen moment taken long before the day we were attacked. An image of Twin Towers standing so tall and strong. One blue sky Tuesday morning, they were gone. I reflect upon that cloud of dust, the tears, the questions why, how this nation was awakened and our eyes were opened wide. And that pit's still in my stomach, and there's 2 there in the ground. Names are etched in stone of those who were never found. Many years have gone by since that awful day, and I keep trying to find the right words to say. I'm still mad, and I still grieve. I still pray for our heroes who fight our enemies. It still hurts, and I still cry. Every year when September 11 passes by, I can't forget. No, I ain't over it yet. I was just a teen and thinking about girls and basketball. Then the world changed when I saw that first building fall. That's when I was confronted with the cold reality that we might not always be free. I recall watching the sunset that night. I thought how many lives were lost who just watched that sunrise. Yeah, I'm still mad, and I still grieve. I still pray for our heroes who fight our enemies. It still hurts, and I still cry.